Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the January 6th meeting of the Roseville Independent Redistricting Commission. The meeting is now called to order. Clerk, can you please call roll?
Barovia? Here. Cuthbertson? Here. Frank?
Here.
Griffith? Here. Ludwig?
Here.
McPhail? Here. O'Keefe?
Here.
Sweeney? Here. Wagner?
Here.
Waldrop?
Here.
Willoughby?
Here.
Alternates Kuhn?
Here.
Slaughter? Here. And Commissioner alternate donor is absent.
All right, thank you. I'd like to invite my son, who's visiting from back east, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And the flag is up here. Sam?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before we begin public comment, I just want to remind everybody that this is one of 6 meetings we're going to be holding in different locations for the public. Also, because we are in a remote location, we don't have the same technology for video and audio, so it won't be televised. We do have audio tape of the meeting, although if you do listen to it in the future, it may not sound as great as you might if we were in city council chambers. I also want to draw your attention to the microphone, and during public comment, you can step up to the microphone, which is our next item on the agenda. If there's anyone in the audience who'd like to speak on anything that's not on the agenda, please come forward to the microphone. Seeing none, we'll go on and move to the approval of the minutes. The minutes have been distributed. If there aren't any amendments or changes from commissioners regarding the minutes, I'll open it up to the public for any comments on the December 20th meeting minutes. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
And Mary, you have a second? So it's been motioned and seconded.
Barovia? Yes. Cuthbertson? Yes. Frank?
Yes.
Griffith? Yes. Ludwig?
Yes.
McPhail? Yes. O'Keefe?
Yes.
Sweeney? Yes. Wagner?
Yes.
Waldrop?
Yes.
Willoughby?
Abstain.
All right, we'll move to the first item on the agenda, item 5.1. City Attorney Joe Mandel, it's all yours.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joe Mandel with the Roseville City Attorney's Office. And tonight, the Redistricting Commission is holding the first of 6 public hearings to discuss the 6 draft maps that are being considered for final adoption by the Commission. And just as an FYI, I'm going to be giving the same exact presentation and overview at each of the public hearings, just so that the messaging is consistent. But before we jump in and look at the individual maps, I wanted to do a quick recap of what we're doing tonight and to discuss all of the redistricting criteria that should be considered when we create a final map. And some of this information is redundant for everybody that's been following along this whole time, but I want to make sure that we're all aware of dates and deadlines. So I'm going to go over all of the draft maps on this PowerPoint as well, but all of the draft maps are up here. You're welcome to get up and walk around and look at them, point at them throughout the evening, but I'm just going to do a general overview of everything right now. And starting with, why are we here? What is the purpose of the Redistricting Commission? So we're here doing the redistricting process. We're making it an open and transparent process that allows public comment on the drawing of council district boundaries. We're doing this to ensure integrity, fairness, and without political or personal considerations. This is all language that came and was approved by the voters and added by Measure R and is now as part of Article 11 in our Roseville City Charter. So everyone here on the Redistricting Commission is looking at these maps with this redistricting criteria in mind. This comes from our city charter, Article 11, Section 11.09. So these are the items, again, that the Commission shall draw its map so that, and this is just straight out of the code, subsection 1, so that they're substantially equal in population as required by the Constitution. Number 2 is that the council district boundaries comply with the U.S. Constitution, California Constitution, and all of the various laws. And so those are the shall do's. Now, these next ones are a lot of what we're looking at and taking testimony on here is, you know, these are the ones that we're looking at and setting the criteria in this order of priority. So looking at number one, again, with that qualifier of to the extent practicable, council districts shall be geographically contiguous. Before I move on, can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me okay back here? Okay, just making sure. Thank you. So redistricting criteria, again, in this order of priority. 1, to the extent practicable, council districts shall be geographically contiguous. 2, to the extent practicable, the geographic integrity of any local neighborhood association boundaries, or local community of interest shall be respected in a manner that minimizes its division. And in here we have a definition of a community of interest, which is a population that shares common social or economic interests that should be included within a single district for purposes of its effective and fair representation. We have an item on the agenda tonight for testimony for people to come up and talk about communities of interest, so we will get to that as well. Moving on in the order of priority for these redistricting criteria. Number 3, district boundaries should be easily identifiable and understandable by residents, and to the extent practicable, council districts shall be bounded by natural and artificial barriers, by streets, or by boundaries in the city. Number 4, where it doesn't conflict with the preceding criteria, council districts shall be drawn to encourage geographical compactness in a manner that nearby areas of population are not bypassed in favor of more distant population. And then number 5 is just any other commission adopted criteria that doesn't conflict with the law. And as of now, this commission has not adopted any other criteria. Now that we've seen what we shall do, what we should look at in the order of priority, now we're looking at what we shall not do. So the commission shall not adopt council district boundaries for the purpose of favoring or discriminating against a political party, and we shall not consider the place of residence for any individual, including any incumbent or political candidate, in the creation of a map. Okay, now we are going to actually get to the various maps, and I'm going to start with what we're calling draft map A. So we moved forward 6 maps for further consideration, and we renamed them draft map A, B, C, D, E, and F. But draft map A, as you can see, I'm going to try to use this little pointer down here. You can see in this little corner, formerly public map number 1. So public map A is formerly public map number 1. And then up in this top right corner, when I start talking about the deviation, if you recall, each of these districts need to be generally equal in population, and for these districts, it's around 30,000 people in each one. And so when you're looking at the district with whatever the population is that was created for that district and the other one, there can be no more than a 10% total deviation from the lowest to the highest. So that's what I'm pointing out. So if something kicks over into over 10%, then that would not be something that would be allowed. So this draft map A, formerly public map number 1, shows a total deviation of 9.5%, and this one also preserves 89% of the neighborhood associations. And again, I'm just going to flip through these just to generally introduce them, and we can get into much more detail later on. Draft map B is formerly public map number 6. This one has a total deviation of 6.3%, and 91% of the neighborhoods were preserved. Draft map C is formerly public map number 8. This one has a total deviation of 4.4%, and 78% of the neighborhoods were preserved. Draft map D is formerly public map number 14, with a total deviation of 6.3% and 93% of the neighborhoods preserved. Draft map E, formerly public map number 15, total deviation of 8.3%, and this one has 98% of the neighborhoods preserved. And all of these in the bottom left-hand corner have some of the author's comments, and they talk about which neighborhood districts are held together or not, or are split up, or for whatever reason they were drawn. So there's a lot of good information down in the corner of those. formerly public map number 25. And so the total deviation on that one is 6%, and this one had 98% of the neighborhoods preserved. So we'll have more discussion about each one of these individual maps, but I wanted to also talk about some of what we chatted about at our last meeting, and this is sort of the procedure now and the procedure moving forward over the next couple of weeks. So right now we're at a point where the commission has pushed forward 6 maps, draft maps for further discussion, and we will be adopting a final map at our January 24th meeting. And so this is language again out of our city charter, Article 11, Section 11.10, and this is what we did at our last meeting. So the commission shall file a preliminary redistricting plan and draft map. We filed maps with the city clerk, along with a written statement of findings and a reason for adoption, which shall include the criteria employed in the process and a full analysis and explanation of the decisions made by the commission. The city clerk shall publish the preliminary redistricting plan and draft map at least 30 calendar days prior to the adoption of a final redistricting report and final map. All of this was filed with the city clerk on December 22nd, 2021. So then we move on to subsection B in this charter section. During the 30 calendar day period after publication, the commission shall hold at least 5 public hearings, including 1 public hearing in each existing council district. This is meeting number 1. We're having 6. We only have to have 5, but we're having 6. One of them is actually going to be, as you note on the schedule there, one of them is on a Saturday afternoon at the Civic Center. So if a weekday doesn't work for anyone, please feel free to come in for that Saturday meeting as well. But again, these presentations that I'm giving will all be the same, but there will be obviously different people present at each one testifying. And this is what we're doing next after having heard comments from the public on the preliminary redistricting plan and draft map. The commission shall adopt a final redistricting report and final map. And that final map has the force and effect of law 30 calendar days thereafter. And the city council may not rescind, supersede, or revise the district boundaries. So that meeting is scheduled for January 24th, 2022. We have a deadline of February 1st to get all of this done, and at the very beginning of this full schedule, we sort of penciled in a date of January 31st as a if we need it date, but as of right now, we're all pushing forward to this final map adoption date of January 24th. And so on January 24th, what we're going to be doing is moving around. We're going to be doing a lot more substantive moving around of the maps and lines, and that's not necessarily what we're doing here at these meetings of taking the draft map and drawing lines back and forth. These meetings are more to take public testimony and comment from people and communities of interest so that the commission has a better understanding of what the public wants with these maps, and at that final meeting is really where we're going to be making a lot more of those boundary changes up on the screen. We can do some draft ones maybe when we're in the council chambers, but I feel uncomfortable making those changes when we're at a place like this that it's not televised to everyone. So after the map's adopted, the city clerk shall number each city council district so that for as many residents as possible, the number of the council district that they reside in remains the same. And the final redistricting report and final map is subject to a referendum in the same manner as ordinances. So that's my overview for tonight. If anyone ever has questions about the redistricting process, please feel free to contact us at any time. I'm Joe Mandel. This is Helen Dreyer. If you see our names and faces everywhere. And with that, Chair Frank, I will turn it back over to you. And really what I'm looking for here is I'd like, if you want to ask the commissioners for their input, their thoughts, their wants, their concerns, what sort of things they're looking to get clarified or what their expectations are out of what the testimony is going to be. We can hear from everybody. We can hear from everybody in the public that wants to speak, and that's what we're here for tonight.
All right, thank you, Joe. I just want to remind everybody in the audience that there is some draft maps and other information on the table up there, and then we have kind of this beauty pageant of the 6 different maps up against the wall here, so you can, if you feel free during the meeting to walk up there and take a look at the maps if you'd like. And of course, everybody that would like to will have an opportunity to give their 2 cents and say what they like about a map or don't like about a map, or generally conceptually what they like about a map. And so again, to the commissioners, if you have any questions or thoughts that you'd like to share with Joe about the current maps or anything in the future regarding the maps, just kind of a brainstorming session, what your thoughts have been since our last meeting. Now's the time to ask. Anybody like to go first?
And I will be able to move this back and forth to go to the individual maps if we want to go to them and talk about it. So,
Are there any commissioners who have any questions or comments regarding the maps or the presentation made by Joe? Seeing none at the moment from commissioners, and of course you can always come back to that. But Joe, I do have a question. I know at the December 20th meeting, when we narrowed it down to the 6 maps, on some of them we made some suggested changes.
yes.
Now those aren't reflected necessarily on the maps here, but there's kind of an understanding that if we coalesce around a particular map, for example, the Sierra Vista Neighborhood Association,
Correct.
whether that kind of V-shaped part, which wasn't a part of District 2 in map B, at the December 20th meeting, we talked about, yes, making it a part of map of District 2.
So there was a discussion about doing that. There was a discussion about doing that for map B, but what the formal motion, I'm sorry, for map A. So what we ended up, I'm going to go, this is map A, and for everybody to understand what we're talking about here is, if you can see my little pointer, there was an area up here that was moved from the top corner of District 4 and moved into District 3. And so there was a motion made to move this map forward, assuming that change could be made. Yes, that change could be made. And then there was also to move the Roseville High School area into historic Sierra Vista, which is, am I pointing at that right? I can't really read that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
down in this area. And so if that were to have changed, and if we were to have made that change, that would have pushed the total deviation over 10%. So that change was not made. So this draft map A only reflects the little change up near Sun City. It was a 0 population area that was changing from district to district. But the area in historic Sierra Vista with Roseville High, that was not changed because that would have pushed it over. So that this map works and is good, but it is not with that change of historic Sierra Vista, including Roseville High School.
And did we not have a motion on map B to a similar effect?
Correct, yeah. So that's what we went back and looked to see if there was that same change made or discussion made for map B. I believe we have, so I'm moving to map B now just so everybody sees. And so same general area that we're talking about down here in historic Sierra Vista, and whether or not we included this area of Roseville High in, help me out, was it the District 2, pushing it into District 2? That would work and would not push the total deviation over. I just didn't want to change any district lines, but if and when we want to have a further discussion about that, or if that is ultimately an area that's up for changing at the final adoption meeting, that is certainly something that could happen.
Any comments or questions from commissioners? Commissioner? Okay, so we'll go ahead and open it up to the public. Just a reminder that the commission is bound by some legal requirements regarding the deviation and the number of people in each district, but also by the census tracts. And so it might seem that we should move a certain part of the city into a different district, but we might not be able to because we can't carve up census tracts. And so just keep that in mind with your comments. Who would like to go first? You can state your name and your address for the record.
First of all, pardon me taking off my mask because it fogs up my glasses when I talk. Good evening, Chair Frank and members of this commission. I'm Dave Brenninger, President of Roseville since 1996. I'm President of the Board of Directors of Sun City Roseville Community Association. And I'm here tonight doing two things. I'll comment on our recent letter, and I
brought copies. I maybe would ask if you could pass these down. I brought 12 copies. I understand you're going to get electronic copies, but I'm from the era where it's nice to look at what people are actually talking about in person. My apologies to the alternates. I didn't know there were 15, so I didn't bring those, and two staff members. My apologies as well. First of all, I thank you, because we are a volunteer board of directors, volunteer committees, volunteer clubs, everything's volunteerism. Thank you for your service above self to step up, step forward, and to serve on this commission. You've got a very important duty being watched by many people, and we appreciate also the very tight timeline you're under. The letter I distributed to you, we filed just the other day on January 3rd electronically. I understand you'll be receiving it. It also includes our prior letter as a backup of December 20th that I know you'll also receive. Let me summarize what's here, and then I'll add a personal comment toward the end as a Sun City and as a Roseville resident and voter on an important aspect. The Board of Directors and the Sun City Roseville Community Association has reviewed the analysis, has quickly gone over here, but I've reviewed it in great detail. Thank you for moving forward. Former map 6, which is now B. We recommend that you approve map B. We find that to be what is the most compatible for continuity, for community of interest, for Sun City Roseville Community Association in Council District 4. When the City Council considered, for very important reasons, forming districts just a few years ago, our association board was actively involved in that process. And what I'm going to be saying is consistent with why you received this letter. We feel it's important for what has now become numbered Council District 4 just a few years ago. And with our encouragement of the formation of how the lines might look, that the integrity of map B represents our best interest for all the reasons given as to your purpose and criteria. You can read the letter from December 20th. We'll go a little more background. This letter that brings to you an additional recommendation now that it's known which maps you move forward. We do not endorse, we do not recommend, we ask that you would eventually delete maps D, E, and F for any further consideration. We find that these 3 maps would remove Sun City, Roseville from Council District 4 and place the community in Council District 5. Sun City, Roseville's community of interest are closely associated, as discussed with neighborhoods, HOAs, development within Council District 4 and not in Council District 5. Our community of interest are associated in such a way that we feel that we do not want to be in District 5. You need to hear that from someone, and I'm the one here giving you that information, as well as a voter in District 4. Just a comment for you, when the existing Council District 5 was planned, remember that was once in the county, the area on the other side of Fetterman Road. David and Dolly Fetterman, when they sold that, it was in the county to be developed that way. Decision was made with the supervisors. I think Bill Santucci played a key role after leaving the mayor to become supervisor. I think they even called it the Santucci Agreement. Nonetheless, the arrangement for how you plan, developed, and even financed that whole area west of Fetterman is completely different than everything immediately east of Fetterman Road. One striking example is there are a little higher fees and charges, but especially in District 5, in those areas I'd be referring to. There's this Melrose assessment. We do not pay that. Our community of interest, for example, is so strikingly different from that with which would be called the Del Webb community right across the way. They may share a name, that's it, but they don't share a commonality with us, nor any of the other senior communities westwardly of Fetterman Road. A comment now from myself. I didn't put this in the letter because our association as a whole doesn't vote. Individuals vote. We have 5,000 residents, 5,300. I would be one of those. If others were here, they might share the same. An important attribute of District 4 currently, and if you select B, we get to vote this year. 2022. We get to vote again in 4 years, 2026. Get to vote again in 4 years, 2030. You put us, Sun City, Roseville, District 4, into 5. You done deprive and deny the right to vote. Because District 5 won't come up for an election until 2024, 2028. By the time they vote again in 2032, people who we have replaced you on this exact commission will be meeting to decide, my God, District 5 is now so big because that's where all the growth is. Let's put Sun City back in the District 4 or some other district. That is where the growth is. All we have in greater part of District 4 is some infilling with Campus Oaks, the former Hewlett Packard property. So I can't bring this point more closely to you than as an individual. I really don't want to be deprived of a right to vote from a city council representative that I see as important, being a part of District 4. And if you move us into 5 and any of those 3 maps, you take away people's right to vote. I guess it's a way to gerrymander thing, and that's not what anybody's trying to do. But if I hadn't thought about that principle of what could happen by that map D, E, and F, that's the backbone of what I would say is the most onerous. I've given you the backbone as to why our associations, community of interest, continuity, and integrity should be upheld. With that, if I'll be glad to answer any questions if that's appropriate during public comment, if you have any for me. Otherwise, I have no further comments.
Are there any questions for Mr. Brenninger from commission members? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for serving.
I did want to add on to one thing that Mr. Brenninger said, and we had a public comment at the last meeting that brought up some of that same general comment of depending on which district changed, if you went from old District 2 to new District 1, would that affect your ability to vote? And so on the table in front of you is a piece of paper that looks like this. They're on the table over this way as well in case anybody wants to grab a copy. And what this does is it breaks it down for every map, draft map A, B, C, D, E, F, and it shows the number of people changing from one district to the other and therefore would not be able to vote in the next election. And so you'll see all of those various numbers that are in here for you to be able to compare what each map does with regard to an effect on future voting over the next couple of years.
And on that piece of paper, those that are highlighted in yellow is the 6-year gap from 2018 to 2024.
Correct.
All right, if you don't mind stating your name and your address.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Jay Reed. I live at 2942 Nelson, right over here at Johnson Ranch, and have for several years now. I'm also a consultant and have advocated on behalf of business interests in districting and redistricting processes in jurisdictions throughout the state of California, and have done so for more than 10 years now. And part of what my advocacy would have been is to make sure that business corridors, town centers, all stayed intact and weren't split in half or anything like that. And in each of my experiences, I have borne witness to incredible amounts of shenanigans with districting or redistricting. Either they were covert or they were transparent. But, and I'm sorry to say that, this process that you all have been through, it's very clear that there has been some shenanigans as well. And one only need to look at maps D, E, and F to see that. Those shenanigans are when you hop over neighborhoods in an interest to create bigger areas. And that's obvious when you have, in specifically District 3 and in maps E and F, when you hop over Pleasant Grove and you hop over the Harding area, you have a different interest in mind. And also you have 2 different specific plans that you've split up as well. It puts apartment communities that back up against Highway 65 along with the historic Sierra Vista area. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And I would also say that map A, the deviation is far too high. So if I'm going to specifically advocate for a map, I think C has the lowest deviation, but map B is also a good second choice as well. Thanks.
you very much, Mr. Reed. Please state your name and address for the record.
Members of the Commission, Nick Alexander, I reside at 1408 Adams Court. I've been a member of the Parks and Recreation Commission for 18 years and 10 months in counting. Please make it, I want to make it abundantly clear that my only interest in speaking to you tonight is as a 30-year resident at 1408 Adams Court. In reviewing the 6 maps released for discussion, I wish to make the following comments. The communities of interest should follow the boundaries of the approved specific plans as close as possible because they are easily identifiable. Keep in mind that Roseville was the first in the region to implement the specific planning process in the late 1980s, and we're a successful city because of these comprehensive planning documents. As a result of our success, other regional cities are now using specific planning process. Each one of these planning documents has an approved EIR, physical impact analysis, how infrastructure, open space, parks, and schools are funded and maintained, how property is zoned for compatibility with adjacent lands. Keeping council districts consistent with the underlying approved specific plans would result in efficiencies for each district's council member not needing to learn and understand multiple specific plans. In conclusion, continue the 40-year success of the City of Roseville by using approved specific plans as boundaries for communities of interest. Please consider drawing council district boundaries consistent with those specific plan boundaries as close as possible. And I believe, and in my opinion, draft map B best satisfies this. After all, it's worked for 40 plus years. There's no need to change. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public would like to speak?
Ryan Ronco, 2516 Tradewinds Drive in Roseville. Good evening, Chair Frank and Commissioners. I'm Ryan Ronco, Placer County Clerk, Recorder, Registrar of Voters. I'm here tonight for 2 reasons. One, as a 38-year Roseville resident and political junkie, I am really interested in seeing what comes of this process, so thank you very much for that. And 2, and way more importantly, along with your city clerk, I am the official charged with the responsibility of conducting your elections, and this obviously will greatly impact that. So to that end, I want to remind your commission that there are thousands of miles of invisible voting boundaries that crisscross the city already. To the extent practicable, I plead with you to follow those school district lines, those special district lines, those state assembly and senate district lines, the county supervisor lines, and voting precinct lines that already exist today. By following these existing lines, your commission would accomplish the following. Following existing lines would help you avoid splitting parcels, which causes extra work for my office in determining into which district to place that parcel when it exists in 2 separate districts. Following existing lines, especially school, special, state legislative, and county supervisor lines, will also not create new ballot types. When lines form pockets of voters with unique combinations of races on their ballots, which in turn require us to create and count a completely different ballot for that little tiny area. Eliminating ballot types reduces voter confusion, reduces election complexity, and reduces the cost of elections, thus saving precious taxpayer dollars for parks and roads and other important city functions. I commend you in advance for your very, very important work. And if at any time I can be of assistance to this commission, please call me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan. State your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Aldo Panesci, 1873 Stone Canyon Drive in Roseville, and thank you for the chance to speak. Good evening, Chair Frank and Commissioners. Appreciate you doing this, appreciate you volunteering your time. Just be very, very brief. Perfect time for me to come up following our County Clerk, Ryan Ronco. I was going to say that I hope you will be able to create or give choices for a map that follow precincts and school districts and special districts and all those things that Ryan mentioned, and also Mr. Alexander, about our specific plan process, because Among the many great things about Roseville also is that we essentially created the specific plan process, or at least refined it to the point that it is the model throughout the state. From many years ago, our 12 specific plans are held highly throughout the region, especially from a planning process. And I think that if you use those as part of your decision-making process, that it should point you toward map B, which I personally support, and map C is okay as well, but I prefer map B because it follows along those lines and provides the most, I guess, stable way to create these districts, and also the least amount of deviation with regard to what Mr. Mandel mentioned, which is those that may not be able to vote for a period of time. I believe it was the lowest number at 33,000 folks that were displaced, compared to the other maps that go to 57,000, 76,000, et cetera. And I think that's a very important thing along the lines of what Mr. Brenninger mentioned as well. So once again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can we have a moment to ask Mr. Rocco some questions? Can I recall the witness?
Ryan, Rocco's a question for you.
Shoot, I knew I should have gone to my hockey game over at City Town. That's quite all right.
Is Roseville split by any state assembly district?
Let's see. There is a close line, but I don't believe that it's split by a state assembly district and also Senate district. There were so many changes at the last second with the state redistricting lines that I don't want to state 100% because my brain can't hold all that information.
Yeah, I don't expect it.
But I don't believe that Roseville was split. Auburn, I believe, is the only city that actually has some splits.
Do you have a rough idea how many voting places we had in the last election?
County-wide, we had 130. In Roseville, I think we had 17 locations. And it would be our hope to be able to have that many again. That would be about the minimum number that we would ever have. If anything, we will have more, because as we create more ballot types, we have to create more locations to be able to have people go vote.
Is anybody in your office reviewing these maps? Could you speak back from that?
Not your city maps, no. We're busy right now actually still doing the zeros and ones process of GIS to put the supervisor maps and now the state maps into our system. So we haven't actually done any pre-review of any of the maps in Roseville, or Lincoln for that matter. Thank you.
I have another question also. How can we get the information without the precinct? Is there a way to overlay the precinct lines?
Absolutely. So my office could work with your demographer or whoever is working those maps to be able to give you what we have in existence right now. And as was mentioned before, census blocks and tracts don't perfectly line up with things. We know that and we understand that. But when we can make a decision that doesn't greatly impact the map, and we can follow a line that would make just as much sense as another, that's what we would love for that opportunity to have your commission do that. And I know that fine tuning is going to come later. So just put us in touch with the right people and we'll be more than happy to get our existing lines to you. Thank you.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Chairman Frank and members of the commission, my name is Wendy Garrick and I live at 1002 Chapman Court, and I've been there for 28 years. And I'm here tonight as a concerned citizen, but first I would like to thank all of you for your time and effort. Probably a thankless job, and it's just the beginning of the different hearings, but you've had months of work behind you, so thank you for that, because somebody in Roseville had to do it. First of all, I just want to say, never was a fan of district elections. I thought it was a bad idea when we moved to that. That being said, we're here and let's make the best of it. So What I would like to see and what I, in my studies, would believe would be the best is what we've heard from a couple of other speakers, and that is to align the districts with the specific plans, not the neighborhood associations. The district should be contiguous. The size should be relatively equal, and we heard that in most cases they were, and maintain the communities of interest. And in looking at the options, it looks like C would be the best choice, with B being the second best right up there. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for your efforts.
Anybody else like to come forward for public comment?
Good evening, commissioners. I am Lisa Larkin. I've lived in Roseville for 21 years. I was greatly involved in the last Roseville redistricting when it happened in the maps, and not too happy with what happened with the map that was drawn. It was obviously clearly gerrymandered. And I've come with some information about the following maps here. First of all, I've been hearing some comments about district lines and school districts. Those are not part of the Voter Act requirements. They're not in that order that's supposed to be paid attention to. The biggest thing is neighborhood communities and associations, keeping those together, neighborhoods of interest. So district lines for schools, all those things don't really have anything to do with it. It would be nice for Ryan Rocco to not have to do all that. I agree, but the biggest part of redistricting is keeping those neighborhoods of interest together. Some notable divisions of neighborhoods that take place in these following maps. I don't know if it was discussed earlier, because I actually went to Mahaney by accident, and that's why I was late. But map C actually divides about 10 neighborhoods. Blue Oaks, Diamond Oaks, Bitterman Farms, Folsom Road, Highland Reserve, which is my neighborhood, Johnson Ranch, Pleasant Grove, gets divided into 3 districts, Sierra Vista and Fields Manor. Map B divides Caseburg, Kingswood, Stone Ridge, Wood Creek Oaks into 3 districts, and also detaches Sierra Vista from the old Roosevelt area. Map 1 would be my 4th choice, Blue Oaks, Quail Glen, and Sierra Vista. The high school is the only thing that gets separated in Sierra Vista. Map D would be my 3rd choice, which is the notable neighborhood divisions there are Harding, which is business district, and then Quail Glen is the only other district that gets, or the other neighborhood that gets divided there. And maps E and F divide no neighborhoods. So all neighborhood associations are kept together. Most all of the maps are compact and contiguous, so that's clearly not an issue. But when you're looking at the voter rights and the requirements, the top 5 don't include school district lines or planned neighborhoods, right? It doesn't include that. You're supposed to be looking at the communities of interest and not dividing those. And so that's the top priority. The 5th option is to look at other options once the other 4 have been met. So I hope that you all will look at that, and I have a preference, and I would say map E and F, and then D would be the next choice. Thank you.
Could either of you state your name and your address, please?
Sorry. My name is Jim Kidd. I live at 1939 Johnson Ranch Drive. I'm a member of the Minor Neighborhood Association. Welcome to the Minor Neighborhood Association here. I just want to give you a little of my background to show where I'm coming from. I've been a member of Arcona for 20 years, and I've been on the executive board most of those years. But I'm not here representing Arcona, I'm here representing Jim Kidd. But I know most of the leaders of the neighborhood associations, and I've talked with most of those leaders, and I've come away with 2 conclusions from talking to those neighbors. That they don't want the neighborhood associations split, and they want the core neighborhood associations in one district. Most people know the core neighborhood associations are Folsom Road, Los Cerritos, Historic, Sierra Vista, Roseville Heights, etc. Another little area I want to talk about before I talk about the map I like is Arcona sent you a letter of recommendation for map A or the old map 1. You need to take that with a little grain of salt because when we voted on map A, the old map 1 stated that that map only divided Blue Oaks and Quail Glen. Well, that's a false statement. I don't know if you eliminated that from the map, but map 1 splits Blue Oaks, Harding, Historic Sierra Vista, Quail Glen, and Stonebridge to the best of my knowledge. So again, I know Arcona sent you a letter of recommendation for A, but just take it with a grain of salt. So because of my conversation with neighborhood association leaders, I'm highly recommending map F. As the last speaker said, map F splits no neighborhood associations and leaves the core neighborhood associations intact. It also keeps the police districts intact. And the only difference I see between E and F is Diamond Oaks. Diamond Oaks is, I believe, in, I don't know what, it's in District 1 on one of those maps. I'm sorry, it's in District 2 on one of those maps, and it's in District 4 on the other map. Maybe there's some other differences between E and F, but that's the only differences I see. The second choice I would make is map B, but there would have to be some adjustments with it, like we talked about. Historic Sierra Vista must go into District 2. I don't know what it's in now, but it's in map B, it's not in District 2. And there's some other minor tweaks that we need to do. The map I would hope you would remove would be map C. Map C is a disaster for neighborhood associations. There's 10 neighborhood associations that are split up in map C. 7 of them are active neighborhood associations. There's some other, when you get to the west side of Roseville, I'm sure you might hear this, but map C separates Fitton Farms from West Park Neighborhood Association. Those 2 neighborhood associations used to be one neighborhood association, but because of increase in population, Arcona split them into 2, but they still meet on the same day of the month, and they still work together, and they have a lot of commonality together. So that's why C splits West Park and Fitterman Farms, and I personally don't like that, and I'm sure they will let you know about that. That's about all I have to say. The bottom line I have is I hate districts. I wish they never happened, but it was forced onto the city. And the other thing, I think no matter which district's map we pick, knowing the 5 council members now and hopefully the future council members now, council members will work for all of Roseville. Even if you're in the District 1, District 4, council members will work for all of Roseville. So thank you very much.
All right, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Jim Ferguson. I live at 1874 Hidden Lane. I've been there for 37 years. I don't have a specific recommendation other than that consideration be given to the differences between maps C and D and the other 5, in that it creates a situation where you have 2 districts on map C and D that are addressing the ongoing growth in West Roseville. And I guess I don't have an opinion, but I'm questioning whether there's an advantage or disadvantage in having 2 councilmen representing that growth issue, or a single councilman representing the growth issues in those areas. So that's all I've got to say tonight.
Any other members of the public who'd like to speak tonight? All right, then we'll go ahead and close public comment. Obviously, there will be other opportunities if you didn't choose to speak tonight to communicate with the commission through email or any of the other public meetings that we'll be holding over the next several weeks. This agenda item 6.1 was for information only and no action is required. So we will move on to the next agenda item 6.2.
Good evening again, Joe Mandel from the City Attorney's Office. This is an agenda item that I wanted to, this is again just to allow any community of interest testimony or anyone to comment. There was a comment that was just made about, splitting up whether a neighborhood, if they were represented by more than one council member. I would encourage the public and the commission to discuss that as well. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, if a neighborhood association is split up, and so I would like, we could hear from the public on that. And I wanted to note that we have these forms available. There's some up at the table. They're available online as well. And this is the Roseville Redistricting Community of Interest form. And really this is just which draft map do you think best serves the interests of the City of Roseville? You can check what you think is the best, as well as talking about your community of interest. What are the common interests in your community? And please describe how they're important. Explain the geographical location of your community of interest and what are its physical boundaries, and what's the reason your community of interest should be considered in the redistricting process, and how the redistricting process could have an impact on your community. So this is a time now for the public to come in and comment on that, or else I just wanted to let everybody know that these forms would be available here. You can drop them off with us. There's information here where you can submit them online to the clerk's office, or if anyone ever has questions about communities of interest, we just wanted to be able to provide another avenue for everyone to get their comments in. And so that's what this agenda item is about, for communities of interest, and just talking more about the various draft maps.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners regarding communities of interest or submitting the paperwork for community of interest?
Can I make a comment? A comment instead of a question?
Sure.
Okay. Just because I spoke to the president of our neighborhood association earlier today, and she asked that I would also just bring feedback from our neighborhood association. We are, I'm in the Caseburg Kingswood Neighborhood Association, and I've mentioned in previous of our meetings that during the initial districting process, our neighborhood association was split up, and a lot of discussion was around that area being an inactive neighborhood association. It really upset the residents in our area, and so since then we have activated our neighborhood association with the hopes that we would not be split up in the future. And so it's a really important issue for our neighborhood association. So just, when looking at splitting up neighborhood associations, we gave an example about a light change in our area, that we had 2 different council members come and talk to us about things that were going to be happening in our area, and neither council member knew about that change because we were such a small part of their district. Their districts were predominantly East Roseville or West Roseville. And so I know we can't please every community of interest, but our neighborhood association thought it was important to emphasize that we have activated and they want to be seen as a community of interest. Thank you.
I just have a question regarding neighborhood associations, either with the city or maybe with members of Arcona. Are there inactive neighborhood associations that we can, is there a list of those anywhere? So if they are split, we know that they're inactive.
I don't know the answer to that personally, but if somebody from Arcona does, yeah.
Yes, just Kevin Lachamp, president of Arcona.
Do you mind coming to the microphone, Kevin? Thanks.
Yes, Kevin Lachamp, president of Arcona. So to answer your question, I would say yes, we can definitely provide this commission with a list of our active and inactive neighborhood neighborhoods very easily. So we could probably get that to you maybe tonight or tomorrow and get that to you for your consideration.
Thank you.
I just want to say, as the commissioner said, I'm not sure why it matters whether a neighborhood association is active or inactive. We don't want to split up the neighborhood association. An example of an inactive neighborhood association that I don't know if people care that they split them up because they're inactive, but they're active now. So we should assume all the neighborhoods are going to be eventually active. That's kind of like my job to do it. I'm having a hard time doing it, but I don't see why we should worry whether a neighborhood is active or inactive. We'll get you into this, but I don't know if that should be a major consideration.
We have received some written public comment as well about whether or not neighborhood associations should be one of the deciding factors or one of the communities of interest and that sort of thing. So again, I just want to reiterate that all of these written public comments they have been sent to each one of the commissioners. We send them out. All of the ones that come in every day, we send them out once a day to you guys, as well as we're going to make them available, all of those public comments available online on our city's redistricting page. And we're going to try to update that every day so that as the public wants to see what sort of other written comments have come in, they can see those as well.
So I just think we probably need to keep, I don't think as a commission we can necessarily think that we've completely checked the box of keeping neighborhoods and community of interest intact by following the Arcona lines. I don't think it's as simple as that. We can't say, oh, we've got 100% of Arcona, the neighborhood associations, not split up. There could be communities, there's many factors that go into communities of interest, not just a line drawn on a map and a group that gets together. It goes deeper than that. So I think we just need to keep that in mind.
Can I make a comment? In the charter zone in B2, it states right in there local neighborhood association boundaries, which is what we're speaking to. So this is something the charter says we're supposed to pay attention to.
I'll also add that I really found one of the comments, the first comment from Dave in Sun City, a really good example of blending why a neighborhood association is a community of interest. And so I would love to continue to hear from the public some of those specifics as to why the specific plan that they want to reference or their neighborhood association, why that is their community of interest. I thought that, talking about the timing of development, about, fees being paid, some of those things about what binds a community was really helpful, and it did overlap with that Sun City neighborhood association and that distinction between Del Webb here versus Del Webb there. So I think, just blending kind of, we need to look at neighborhood associations, but also really getting into what is the community of interest that we're using neighborhood associations as a proxy for.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners regarding communities of interest, or any other questions? Again, this one was information only.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm slow. I think just at least for myself in the process so far, it has been using the city charter as kind of like my Bible for how we determine the decisions that we're making. And inside of the charter, it has, this is the order of priority for things, and it's, is it contiguous? That's number one. Number two, to the extent practicable, are we keeping neighborhood associations together? So there's these very specific things that we've been following, and I think it's kind of reflective in most of the maps that were selected as drafts. So that's sort of kind of where we're coming from when we came up with the 6 from the public drawing maps. So I'm knowing that, right?
Thank you, Holly. Any other commissioner comments? Again, this is for information only, no action required. Item 6.3 is regards to upcoming redistricting meetings. Joe?
Okay.
You're up.
This is to summarize what we're going to be doing next. So we're going to generally repeat this same process 6 times in various districts throughout the city. And so this is going back to the slide from the presentation that I was doing earlier, just so how everyone has the dates here. Today we're here Thursday, January 6th at Maidu, and then we're doing Tuesday of next week, Thursday of next week, Saturday of next week at 2 p.m., and then Tuesday and Thursday of the following week. So a lot of Tuesday, Thursdays, and then January 24th is the meeting date set up for that final map adoption. And that's when we will be, obviously taking all the public comments and testimony, and we'll be having a more robust discussion about where we want to draw those lines. At the meetings, that will be, I'm going to go back to this slide that shows we're Maidu now, then we're at the Civic Center, then we're at the indoor pool, then we're at the Civic Center. When we're at the Civic Center, we will have the ability to stream these. We'll have remote telephonic public comment. It'll be a lot easier to do the PowerPoints and things like that, so it may be a little bit more interactive. We're also going to have our demographer Jed with us at the Civic Center one, so I didn't want to redraw any lines today at this meeting, but we may be able to do that at the next meeting just to kind of visualize what some things will be for future meetings, or to speed up the process a little bit. So I just wanted everyone to be aware of, if you have some lines in your head that you think you may want to be drawn one way or another and see how that works out in real time, please bring that along and we can talk about that or at the next meeting. So I just wanted everyone to be aware of the next meetings that we have coming up, and especially about the final map adoption date on January 24th. So if anyone has questions or comments about that, I'm happy to answer it.
Do any commissioners have any questions or comments regarding future meetings and Joe's presentation? Do any members of the public have any questions regarding item 6.3 regarding future meetings?
Larkin. Sorry, I was wanting to talk about the last one, but you didn't offer public comment on the last one.
We did.
No, I think we did. No, there was a couple people that stepped up on their own, but you didn't call for public on that last one. You let commissioners ask questions.
That's probably my fault, because I interjected with a comment, and then we talked about kind of what I said, and I don't think we then got comments on 6.2.
And I know I never closed public comment.
So
it's still open.
Okay, good. Awesome. So I just want to make a comment as well about neighborhood associations, whether they're active or inactive. They're still neighborhood associations. They're still communities of interest. You've got, where the people live, their shopping centers, all of that, right around where they do, all of their activities. I also wanted to comment on the comment that was made about whether or not it's better to have 2 city council members in one, like for example, splitting Sun City and having 2 city council members represent Sun City or represent the new growth. And I think there's a lack of accountability in that when you have more than one representing one neighborhood, but you also have a weighted influence on that particular neighborhood by them having 2 council members. If there's another neighborhood across town that needs a park, and there's only funds for 1 park, and you've got a neighborhood across town that needs a park and's been waiting, and there's only 1 council member representing their neighborhood, and you've got 2 representing this one over here, and they want a park. There's more weight on that, because now you've got 2 council members who are going to be behind the park for the neighborhood that they both represent. So I just wanted to make that as a consideration when you're thinking about that I personally don't think that having 2, yes, the Roseville City Council members are going to represent the whole city, but you don't want to throw an unfair balance in the persuasion for certain areas in the district. Thanks.
And I think you suggested there are other people who are standing up wanting for public comment. Are they still here?
No, not me. There was 2 other people that stepped up before you.
But are they still here?
I encourage anybody, if anybody else has any other comments or anything, to please feel free to come up. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
All right, seeing none. So just to make sure, we had the presentation, we had commissioner questions and comments. Are there any public comments regarding the future public meeting? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Again, this is for information only, no action is required. Before I seek a motion to adjourn, first of all, as somebody who sat on a variety of commissions throughout my life here in Roseville, seeing this many people at a commission meeting is great. And I'm hoping that, given some of the comments that were made, that we can see things that many people in Roseville see eye to eye on, that we have in common. And we'll try to reconcile the things that we might have differences on, but focusing on the things that we think will be overall best for the city of Roseville and the things that we have in common. And so with that, I will seek a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I second it.
We got a couple seconds. City Clerk?
Unanimous, vote all ayes.
We'll do all this.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody wants to stay, say no. All right, motion passes. Thanks again, everybody, sincerely for coming out.